Joining us this morning, Professor Alon Ben-Meir, Ph.D. and Senior Fellow at the NYU Center for Global Affairs. Professor, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to be with you.
It's good to have you on this morning. What's holding up a ceasefire at this point?
I think, Israel is insisting that any new ceasefire will have to be sustained for a long period of time, because in the past, many ceasefires have been established, but then they've been violated within a month or two or a year for that matter. So against that, Hamas wants to make sure that there's going to be change for the better in their situation. So they are demanding the removal of the blockade over Gaza. So you have these two sticking points that is being discussed. And I think in the final analysis, they will have to reach an agreement, a ceasefire of sort, even if Israel end up going into Gaza. Because in the end, the reality is that both exist, and they're going to have to meet this, face this reality.
You just mentioned that often when these ceasefires are in place, they don't last very long. So let's say we do get to a successful solution, that there is a ceasefire that's reached. Do you see it being short-term or more long-term in this particular case?
Well, again, this is exactly what Israel is insisting upon. There's got to be mechanism established to ensure that Hamas does not get new weapons and not new rockets, that no support from Iran and other entities. That is one of the Israel basic requirements. From their perspective, what's the point in establishing a new ceasefire when in fact it can be violated at whims whenever Hamas feels that they are in a position to reignite the conflict? Hamas, as I said earlier, is also insisting that our condition is untenable. It has to change. You have been under a blockade for so long, and the time has come for us to be free and live with some dignity, and the blockade will have to be removed. I think there's legitimate requirement by both sides. There's no question. That is, if Israel wants to maintain its national security, and it must exist side by side, Hamas and the Gaza Strip, I think it is legitimate for the Hamas to also demand removal, at least gradually, of the blockade, as long as they are prepared to adhere to abandon violence as a means by which to achieve political solution.
We now know that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is headed to the region. What does she bring now to the negotiating table that wasn't there before?
Well, what it is that the United States and Egypt, for that matter, are the most significant power that can effect a change. Egypt, President Morsi of Egypt, is the only country, that can affect and have some significant influence, exert influence on Hamas. On the other hand, the United States is practically the only power that can, in fact, influence Israel to change some direction. So the role of Secretary of State Clinton is to try to find a formula by which Israel can make certain concessions against also significant concession on the part of Hamas.
And Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will be meeting with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Will this really help? The Palestinian Authority doesn't really have any power or authority over Gaza. It's Hamas.
This is absolutely true. I think going to the West Bank and meeting with Mahmoud Abbas is more symbolic, because Mahmoud Abbas claims to be the president of the Palestinian people. So that is more symbolic visit. The more important visit is to go to when she goes to Egypt and meet with the President Morsi of Egypt. He is the power broker. He is the one who can have the greatest effect on Hamas to change its direction and its approach to Israel.
Just out of curiosity here in the last few seconds that we have, the relationship between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, what is it?
Well, it's terrible at best. There's really no real relationship between the two sides. They simply do not see eye to eye ideologically. They do not agree on their approach to their conflict with Israel. And Hamas would like to unseat Mahmoud Abbas and actually assume the authority over the Palestinian people, specifically because 6 years ago or so they won the election, and it's been taken away from them.
Alon Ben-Meir joining us this morning from NYU. Thank you so much, Professor. It's good to have you.
Thank you.